In episode 10, Marty heads down to Mexico with Nelson, who's going to protect him, and Father Benitez, who will give him legitimacy. After that, though, it's up to Marty. And that's going to be easier said than done. He's got to convince these lieutenants that he's not just some messenger boy, that he is to be respected. Basically, he's going to have to be Omar Navarro. As soon as he touches down, Marty calls Wendy to tell her that he's okay, and then he has to get ready to go address all of the cartel's men. They all gather in a large room, and Marty breaks the news that Javi is dead. Some of them think that it was the Laguna cartel again, but he says no. This was done by Omar. Omar gave the hit because Javi was a traitor who was about to do a deal with the FBI. So Navarro is back in charge. He's going to run things for the time being through Marty, but the plan is to have Navarro switch to a lesser security prison, then extradited to Mexico where they can pay his way out of jail and he can be back to running things. Right away, just like Omar predicted, there are some detractors. When a lieutenant named Cabrera asks, how exactly are you going to do that? Marty looks him dead in the eye and says, because I want it done. I wanted Omar to win the cartel war, and he won the cartel war. He then tells all of them that he needs to meet with them individually to discuss their business. So bring their books, bring their accountant, bring anything they need, but they have to go over their finances. As he's walking out, he gets stopped by Omar's sister, Javi's mother, Camilla. It's a little awkward because Marty just told everybody that her son was a rat and he's dead, but she understands that. She actually thought this day would come at some point. But the fact is she's used to it. She lost her father and a husband to this lifestyle, so a son, it's nothing new. She wants to know from Marty, though, how exactly he plans on going about getting Omar back. More detailed. Marty explains that Omar is on something called an SDN list. It's a register of people and companies that the U.S. won't do business with. The first step is getting Omar off of that list. Then getting Omar transferred, getting him extradited, and once he's in Mexico, it's going to be pretty easy to bribe somebody to break him out. Marty comes off confidently, and it's something that impresses Camilla. He then kicks back in Mexico and waits for the next day when he has to meet with all the lieutenants. But things aren't going great back home. Once Charlotte found out that her dad was going back to Mexico, she got really upset at Wendy for putting her dad in that risky situation. Because of that, she's not really on speaking terms with her at the moment. Wendy also figured out pretty easily why Claire Shaw no longer needs her. She goes and meets with Ruth and tries to convince Ruth that she hasn't really thought this through. If Claire likes the product so much, Ruth might have to go into this kind of lifestyle. So what Wendy proposes is Ruth partner with them one time, and then after that, she'll deal with Claire. She desperately needs Claire's donation for the foundation. Ruth would simply have to make it a stipulation in her deal with Claire. But Ruth is no longer trying to help out the birds. Even after Wendy tells her that it was Ruth who killed their chance on getting out of there, Ruth still is not interested in helping Wendy or Marty. So Wendy's going to have to go to plan B, the sheriff. But when she enters, she's surprised because it's not Sheriff Guerrero. It's a new guy named Deputy Wyckoff. He's the interim sheriff. He tells her that Sheriff Guerrero went back to Polk County. She just wasn't a great fit there. And Deputy Wyckoff seems extremely serious. He doesn't answer Wendy's questions as to why Sheriff Guerrero was lifted, if it was her decision or the department's. It causes Wendy to get straight to the point. She tells Deputy Wyckoff that Ruth Langmore is about to go back to the Snell farm and pick up a bunch of opium. So Wyckoff looks into it. He heads over to the Lazy O and starts questioning Sam, but Sam doesn't really know anything. And then he goes to question the Lazy O's accountant, which just happens to be Jonah. And when he finds out that the accountant is Wendy's son, that's a big surprise to him. He also knows that something is going on. Something's fishy. Jonah doesn't really want to answer any questions. But Darlene and Ruth and Wendy all being connected, and now you've got Jonah in the mix, something just doesn't add up. Deputy Wyckoff gets cut off, though, from his interrogation by Nathan, who sees that his grandson is being interrogated without an adult present, and he puts the kibosh on it right then and there. Because he's not getting any answers, Wyckoff just decides to put a tail on her. While Wyckoff has a man following Ruth, Wendy goes to try to see if she can save her foundation. She needs Jim's help. Problem is, Jim isn't answering her calls. So she goes and has a face-to-face with him at his house. He's not thrilled to see her, and he reiterates that he does not want anything to do with her, but Wendy Bird is very convincing. She explains that Javi is dead and their current plan is to get Omar extradited to the U.S., but what they need is the full power of their board of directors. If they put the pressure on the Treasury Department, they will be able to get Omar off the SDN list. He reminds her that no one on the board will be in line with this sort of thinking if donations aren't pouring in, and the fact that the Shaw deal is stalled is not going to help matters. She reassures him that she's working on it, but in the meantime, Jim can help her get some of those donations back. The foundation needs more donors, and he's a really good source with that kind of thing. She wants him to gather as many whales as possible to headline a fundraiser at the casino. He tells her, I'm not back, but I'll make some calls. So at the moment, things are looking up for Wendy, but they're looking the exact opposite way for Ruth. Just like Wendy thought, Ruth heads to the Snell farm to pick up the opium. She rented a U-Haul truck, but she noticed that she was being followed. She thought it might be a coincidence, and when she gets to the farm, she sees the same car, so now she knows for certain she's being followed. She turns the U-Haul around and heads right to the sheriff's department, where she reams Wyckoff out. Wyckoff stands his ground, though, saying that he got a tip that Ruth is going to make a big mistake and she might be trying to take over the Darlene Snell opium supply line. And Ruth knows exactly who tipped him off. Ruth tells Wyckoff that he's being played by Wendy. That's all it is. She has no interest in taking over the opium supply, and that's it. But Ruth knows that yelling at the acting sheriff isn't going to work. He's not just going to tell his men to stand down. They're going to continue to follow her. She needs to get that opium to Claire, so her options are very limited. She heads to go visit with Frank Jr. She explains the situation to Frank and wants his help in getting the opium out. She'll lead the cops on a wild goose chase while he sneaks into the farm, grabs the opium, and delivers it to Claire. Because they now have such a good working relationship, he agrees. He's going to go pick up the opium the next day. And the next day is a busy one for Marty Byrde. He starts meeting with the lieutenants and their accountants, going over the books and giving them tips on how they can increase their cash flow. But then he meets with that Lieutenant Cabrera, who gives him a lot of attitude. He doesn't appreciate the fact that Marty's poking around. And maybe that's because Marty finds discrepancies in his book. Somebody was skimming money off the top from the cartel. Cabrera right away blames his accountant and beats the crap out of him, even though the accountant claims it wasn't him. After this very uncomfortable meeting, he receives a phone call from Wendy, where his day is getting worse. Because in prison, Omar Navarro was attacked, stabbed multiple times in the back, but he was able to kill his assailant. The issue is he bled out so much that now he's in a coma. If he dies, this whole thing goes up in flames. She starts to wonder if they get Marty out of there, but he says no. That would be a sign of weakness. Whoever ordered the hit knows that it just happened, so they'll know why I'm fleeing. What we do is we don't let anyone know he's in a coma. What we do tell him is he killed his attacker, he's strong, and he's still giving the orders. When he hangs up the phone, Camilla comes outside and he runs into her, and she knows what happened. He tells her that he's gotten word from Omar to tell her not to worry. He's strong, he'll be fine. He then asks her what she knows about this Lieutenant Cabrera. He wants to find out who was behind the attack, and this is a guy who lied about his books. She tells Marty that Cabrera and Javi were friends, but Javi also told her that if he ever became head of the cartel, the first thing he would do is get rid of Cabrera. So that's what Marty does. He doesn't outright kill him. He starts off by torturing him, trying to get him to admit that it was he who ordered the hit on Navarro. Cabrera, though, is a tough cookie to crack. They start off by just beating the crap out of him, but he still doesn't admit that he was the one to do the hit. They decide then to just torture him with music and let him sit there, not sleeping for the night. The next day, Cabrera finally breaks. After water torture and music and beatings, he finally admits that it was he who was the one who put out the hit on Navarro. After that, it's just a formality. Cabrera's got to die. And within a few minutes, Cabrera's dead. Back up in the States, before Wendy's big foundation dinner, she heads to the church where Jonah is handing out missing posters for Ben. She didn't go there to help out, though. She needs to talk to Charlotte. Even though Charlotte's mad at her, she needs her help because she needs her at the foundation event that night. It's the Byrde Family Foundation, and Wendy being alone isn't a great look. She needs some family there. Charlotte tells Wendy that she'll go. As Wendy's leaving, she runs into Ruth, who was invited to the event by Nathan. Ruth is disgusted to even see Wendy at the event. After all, Ruth knows that it was Wendy who was behind Ben's murder. But in a way, Ruth is happy to see Wendy, because she wanted to relay the message that the plan that Wendy hatched with the sheriff didn't work and the Shaw deal is done. But Wendy has no idea just how screwed she truly is by this deal getting done. When she shows up at the casino looking at the preparations for this dinner, Jim comes up and tells her that he told all of the board members that the dinner was canceled. And he did that because Shaw Medical is pulling their charitable contributions for the rehab facilities. They probably have one last chance to get Shaw back on board with this. So Wendy calls Claire up and leaves a voicemail telling her that if Wendy isn't happy, the people she works for are not happy. And Claire should know what that means. So Wendy is going to give Claire one more chance to fix all of this. As Wendy is trying to fix the situation with her foundation, Mel Saddam has been able to put the pieces together. With the help of a few sheriffs in different departments and surveillance video, he's been able to make it all the way to the diner where we last saw Ben. And for all you conspiracy theorists out there, we find out for sure Ben is dead. Nelson picked him up and shot him in the head. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought this sucked. Make sure to be nice in the comment section. If you don't see the next video up in the end screen there, I'll get it up in a few days, not to worry. And I have merchandise, so go buy a mug or something. It's never too early to think about Christmas gifts, folks. But once again, thank you for checking out this recap.